Sayın Burak Öymen'i davet etmek istiyorum. Capital Partners kurucu ortağı kendisi. Evet, ne güzel. Evet, hoş geldiniz. Buyurunuz. Nasılsınız? Gayet iyi. Çok teşekkürler. İyi ki geldiniz efendim. Yaka mikrofonu mu istersiniz yoksa buradan konuşacaksınız? Peki, buyurunuz. Sayın Burak Öymen'i dinliyoruz.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, yok, slide yok. So I'm from Turkey, but I've been asked to speak in English, and I'm going to be delivering you my speech in English this morning, or this afternoon. First, I'd like to say what an amazing initiative. I mean, this has been absolutely a joy to watch. I'd like to say thank you to Mrs. Oyanarin and TTYD for this organization, to the Ministry of Tourism and Culture and Minister Ersoy, to Invest in Turkey, our national investment agency, to all the participants, contributors, and also to the Mandarin Oriental in Istanbul for their hospitality. So, as I start, I'd just like to take a straw poll of those of you who are listening. Could you please raise your hand if you've heard of a place called Kaplankaya? Okay, that's interesting. That's more than I thought. Could you please raise your hand if you've been to Kaplankaya? Okay, amazing, great. Thank you so much. So I just came from Kaplankaya. For those of you who haven't been there and those who have heard about it and not traveled there yet, Kaplankaya is a large-scale coastal development project that encompasses hotels, residences, retail, leisure, and ancillary facilities. It's one of the largest projects of its kind in the Mediterranean, and it's one of the largest in the world that's being undertaken by a private company. Kaplankaya is located in the province of Milas, which neighbors Bodrum and belongs to the greater Muğla region. But to really tell you the story of Kaplankaya, I have to take you back to 2005. At the time, Capital Partners, a company my partner Sajan and I had co-founded, had become a significant real estate investor and developer in Moscow. We were focused on our projects there that included the Moscow Ritz-Carlton, the Metropolis Shopping Center, and PLP, a 210,000 square meter warehousing project. As we'd made a name for ourselves, it was common for us to receive investment proposals from around the world. And among a desk full of such proposals, one kept on coming back through different sources. This was a land plot of 482 hectares in a tourism development zone in Milas. I mean, to put 482 hectares in context, the Principality of Monaco is 180 hectares in size. So we're talking about a plot of land that is 2.5 times the size of the Principality of Monaco. So for an urban development company like Capital Partners, this project did not meet our investment criteria. Yet there was a certain allure about it. And for those of you that have been to the southwestern coastline of Turkey, you will know what I mean. In all my travels around the world, I have rarely seen a more beautiful coastline than the Aegean and Mediterranean coastline of Turkey. Vast stretches of this coastline are protected, and for good reason. But along the way, there are a number of tourism development areas. This plot that was being offered to us in 2005 was located in one of these tourism development zones in the National Tourism Master Plan. Still, this was far from a typical project for us. Right at that point, a childhood memory struck me. From the late 70s through the 80s and early 90s, I spent my summers in a place called Aktur in Bodrum. Aktur was a late 60s coastal development project of a few hundred small homes, 8 kilometers outside the city of Bodrum. There was nothing special about the homes. They were small and basic. But there was something special about the place. that would get hundreds of families to get on overnight buses year after year to take the 12-hour journey from Ankara and Istanbul to spend the summer in Aktur. That special thing was community. So we began to ask ourselves the question, could we bring all our know-how around real estate development, our network, our contacts, and financial capabilities to create a coastal community with a 21st century twist? At midday, just before the notary public closed for New Year's Eve of 2005, we closed the transaction to purchase this 482-hectare plot in Milas. In the period that followed, we worked closely with the Ministry of Tourism to co-create this new concept. Initially, we established some key parameters. We wanted to be respectful to the local communities in the region, so we put together a team to visit the 4 villages in our region. We wanted to listen and understand the locals. Very quickly, we set up a socioeconomic support program for the region. This program included scholarships for children, reconstruction of a school, of a mosque, building of village clinics, as well as a program to bring back local handicrafts. In mid-2006, we started working on our master plan and asked our group of some of the best contemporary architects of the world to start work on designing the neighborhoods. We wanted to design the neighborhoods where a hotel, with all its infrastructure, would anchor a residential community. The idea was to design the residences as an extension of the hotel, to allow both owner use as well as their inclusion in the hotel rental pool, increasing hotel key count significantly, while at the same time allowing for a sense of community to take hold. We were also very conscious of environmental impact. We hired sustainability consultants that guided the team of architects for the best possible practices in design that would reduce power load, impact on the water resources of the region, and waste management. We then turned our attention to operators. The gentlemen who were representing the companies that we spoke to were on stage a moment ago. The project concept was attractive, and the timing was right. Very quickly, hotel and branded residential neighborhoods were paired with global hotel brands. Six Senses came on board to operate the Wellbeing neighborhood, and our long-term partner, Ritz-Carlton, started working on 2 neighborhoods simultaneously. By the time we started building in 2012, our plan included a 40-kilometer internal road network with separate dedicated lanes for bicycles, buggies, and cars. The road served as the route for a 30-megawatt subterranean power distribution network, and water was sourced by desalinating seawater. A recycling and composting plant was activated. In the summer of 2016, Kaplankaya was ready to receive its first guests. The last 5 years since then have been an interesting period for tourism around the world, as well as for Turkey. The industry has been tested by events beyond the control of any investor or developer. This period has also been a period of resilience and learning for many of us. In the next part of my talk, I'd like to give you a glimpse of what we've observed and what we have learned through this experience. Large-scale projects, also referred to as mega projects, are destination creators. They represent critical mass that allows for innovation to drive new ideas and offer diversity and differentiated options for the global travel market. Combining hotels with branded residences allows for a sense of community to be established. Initiating a rental pool program for residences provides additional capacity for the hotel, an investment level return potential for the residence owner, and a much higher occupancy level for the destination. Then there's the concept of the master developer. The initial phase of a mega project is a very heavy lift. But once this phase is complete and the place is firmly established as a destination, the development opens up to third-party investors and developers. Then the founder becomes a master developer, a guardian of the concept, a guardian of the design, and a guardian of the master plan. And finally, there is culture. There's a sense of place and lifestyle. In this sense, Turkey is paradise on earth. The historical and cultural richness of our country provides endless possibilities for any destination to choose its foundation for a lifestyle program. In our case, we chose history, archaeology, and well-being. To substantiate what I'm referring to, please consider that within an hour's drive from Kaplankaya, there are 247 ancient sites that date back to over 2,000 years old. Our community that is made up of families from over 20 countries is so engaged in exploring history that they came together to fund the world's second largest underwater archaeology vessel. This vessel will be launched at the end of this month in Antalya and allocated to the Underwater Archaeology Faculty of the Antalya University. And finally, a few words on harvest. Can I just ask, who's heard of harvest? Is there anyone in this room that's heard of harvest? That's interesting. Okay. So I'm going to talk about this and then I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Finally, a few words on harvest. In 2017, we felt that there was a gap between what we were looking for in activation and content and what operators were able to provide. We wanted to create a gathering of minds to explore the latest in well-being and nature. What started off as an idea has now become a great catalyst for destination creation. In the last 5 editions, Harvest has had the privilege of having some of the greatest minds in the world to travel to Kaplankaya to share their knowledge with our global audience. We've had speakers such as Dan Buettner, who coined the term Blue Zones, Sylvia Earle, who runs Ocean Hotspots, Andrew Huberman, who has his own laboratory at Stanford in the neuroscience department, Wade Davis of the National Geographic Society, Mark Hyman, the father of functional medicine, Jamie Wheel, a modern-day futurist, and Gabor Mate, who's the world's leading trauma specialist. And in the 5 editions, the impact of Harvest has been so great that its brand recognition has exceeded that of Kaplankaya, its parent company, and obviously not in this room. So I want to tell you a story about Harvest and why that impact is so strong. We started off Harvest 4 years ago. We had 3 editions, then the pandemic came in, we had to stop, and then we just reignited again last October. But it was after the first or the second edition, and also consider that Harvest only attracts and is limited to 300 attendees per event. So it's very big content, very significant speakers, talking about big ideas for a very, very small group of people. So one can think, what is the impact that one can have doing an event for 300 people once every 6 months? So here's where the story comes in. I was in London in the summer of 2019, and I went to meet a friend of mine at a restaurant. He was late, so I was sitting at the restaurant waiting for my friend to show up. And at the table next to me, there were 4 people. I didn't recognize any one of them. And one of the people at the table, a girl at the table, was speaking passionately about Dan Buettner's Blue Zone concept. And Blue Zones, for those of you that might not have heard about it, are 5 places in the world where a very significant proportion of the population live to 100 years old or longer. They are well-being hotspots, research spots. So she went on and on and on. I said, this is really interesting because I've heard this talk. I just heard this at Harvest 6 months ago, but I don't recognize this person. So the question went back and forth. She said, yeah, this speech was given at Harvest. And it's in a place called Kaplankaya in Turkey. And her friend asked her, she said, so when were you there? She said, oh, I've never been. I've never been to Kaplankaya or Harvest. My friend so-and-so was there. She told me about it. So by coincidence, I was experiencing firsthand the power of word of mouth going from an attendee, one of the 300 people who were in Kaplankaya, or was in Kaplankaya, getting exposed, getting impressed, sharing that story with a friend or multiple friends, and those friends sharing it with the third circle. So the impact of Harvest is incredible. So we have an understanding of what tourism is, which might not necessarily fall in with the traditional or the conventional understanding. I think that as an investor or as a developer, we have to focus on Excel sheets, we have to focus on the bottom line. But in reality, if we really want to create long-term value, I think the true value in tourism is not simply the revenue generated in a given year, but the inspiration the experience generates for the visitors to come back. So that's the end of my talk. In conclusion, I'd like to just make a few remarks on the speech of Ferit Şahenk, which I thought was an excellent speech. There was a call to action there. I mean, I live in Kaplankaya, but I'm a big fan of Cappadocia. I go and spend a lot of time in Argos. It's a phenomenal project. What Doğuş has done for Turkish tourism and to lift Turkish tourism's level of quality is invaluable, in my opinion. We collaborate a lot. We go and with our community, we travel to Cappadocia, to Dimaris, to some of their other properties. There was a call to action in Ferit Bey's speech. He said, let's create the national team of tourism. Let's collaborate. Our competition is not within. It's about making this market stronger. It's about making this destination stronger. And it's about bringing its true potential to the world. So I'd like to echo that call. I'd like to subscribe to his school of thought. And I'd like to thank you all very much. Thank you.